Angela Briggs here with WCLU News, and I've got a very special guest today. Somebody that I actually first met a couple years ago, Miss Victoria Wells. And Victoria, you are, let's just say that your circumstances today are a world away, absolutely opposite of where you were when I met you a couple years ago. You were actually an inmate at the Barron County Detention Center, and you've never at all been shy about your past. So, can you share just a little bit about who you are and about how you wound up in Barron County?
Absolutely. I was thinking about when I was thinking about this interview. I was thinking about the first time I met you and wearing the orange and my hair just, you know what I mean. And it was like, wow, I get to actually sit and do this now. And it kind of blew me away.
Hmm.
I didn't ever dream that I'd be an inmate in the Barron. I didn't even know where Barron County was. I grew up in a little town south of Columbus, Ohio, so way north of Barron County for sure. And then I live in northern Kentucky now and have since 2004. I think
Hmm.
I moved. So this little small town I grew up in, I didn't have a horrible childhood, but it wasn't. It definitely had its ups and downs. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I think that for a long time I didn't. I was conditioned to not talk about those things because it was sort of one of those situations where what happened behind closed doors was just what it was, and publicly it was something different. And
Right.
and that as a kid, you don't just know things. You're taught things. You learn things, and so I was conditioned like that. I was shy. I was introverted, but I was also creative, a really creative kid. I had a huge imagination. The funny thing now that I'm an adult and I've been able to get clean and sober, I'm all those things again. I
Hmm.
just That's pretty cool. I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol when I was 14, and really, I it was a choice. I was I was just like all the other kids who were experimenting with drugs or whatever else was around when you're those ages and into your teenage. It's not an uncommon thing. It's just not. So I guess by making that choice, am I responsible for my addiction, for my alcoholism? Probably. And then I'm okay. But what I was saying was, I mean, that in my mind does make me responsible for my addiction and my alcoholism. But the thing is, I had no idea that I was playing with fire. I was a 14-year-old kid. I had no idea that the consequences of that choice, what they would ever be. I just didn't know.
Hmm.
Uh, the difference with me and the other kids who were doing the same things was that, almost immediately my brain equated the drug or the alcohol or whatever it was at the time with pleasure, with escape, with relief of any kind of emotional struggle or anything like that. So while what I like to call normal teenagers are learning how how emotional you are as a teenager, especially as a female.
Hmm.
You're learning to deal with all these emotions and you're learning to navigate life as it would be, and you're shaping yourself into the adult that you'll become.
Right.
Well, I learned to deal with all those emotions by medicating them with drugs or alcohol. So I mean, I knew no different. My brain just, something was different with me, and
Right.
it continued on. The experimenting continued to other things and led into the discovery of opiates, and that's really that's where everything went south for me. It was so good and so bad at the same time because again, my brain doesn't process things the way that I am of the belief that addiction is kind of two centered. It's a obviously a chemical dependency, which would be the body, but my brain was just, oh, and it gets cloudier and cloudier and cloudier, and you just don't learn to live life on life's terms. You learn to have a chemical substance to depend on, and that followed me clear into my adult years.
How long were you in the Barron County Detention Center?
I think total in Barron County, I was there for about 14 months.
Hmm.
Total, yeah, I bounced around. The way that the judicial system or the correction system works in Kentucky, I didn't really stay in any one place. I made a pretty long line of choices in addiction to support that addiction
Hmm.
that led to some pretty hefty criminal charges, and I had a 5-year sentence
Hmm.
total. Of that 5 years, I did 29 months
Now,
in
what is 29 months like incarcerated? I mean, it would have to go by ridiculously slow.
There were times when it was slow. There were times where I wouldn't say it went fast, but it was, I I adapted and I adjusted, and it just became all I knew. And that was an everyday life thing. You know, that was also probably what got me through a lot of really hard nights. It's lonely.
Hmm.
You just you all you have is yourself, and it's very a very isolated feeling. It's a very long time when you've really only spent maybe a night or two in jail before that to that. I mean, there was no out. That was what it was. I wasn't going anywhere for a long time. I knew
Now,
it.
now you had said that we, when people are in active addiction, a lot of times there is a break with reality. So why isn't being put in jail enough? You know, for most people, the threat of jail is enough to make them, for the most part, walk the straight and narrow. So what is it about addiction that's different? Why isn't jail enough to make people not want to use?
There's when you're that deep in addiction, when you're that hopeless, and you're that broken, and it is that dark. And I mean, I speak this from absolute personal experience. There are no consequences that are going to stop you. There just aren't. The threat of jail, it didn't. I mean, I don't want to say it didn't scare me. I did not want to go to jail, but nothing that I did. I didn't think about the consequences. I thought about satisfying the need that my body and my mind had. I had to get high. You know, it didn't. It jail didn't scare me. Losing my children didn't scare me. I didn't think about any of those things. I thought about satisfying that immediate need, so that you don't think about the consequences of your choices when you make them. Unfortunately.
Right. So basically, it's not that those things didn't matter, but it was that, you know, if you facing a moment of total sobriety, you would have to deal with not just the sobriety and withdrawal, but all the other problems that were created.
Oh, absolutely. You know, things just build up and build up and build up. And for me, you know, the roof basically just caved in. All you're doing is band-aiding all your problems. You know that things are wrong. You know that you're not a good mother. You know that you're not a good person. I knew I was a junkie. Nobody had to tell me that. I knew that. I looked in the mirror every day. I hated myself. I wanted to die.
Hmm.
I lived a life where that was my existence. All of those things absolutely mattered to me, but nothing mattered more than that addiction, because all my brain was telling me was, you know, this stuff will be okay. You can deal with that tomorrow. You can put that off until then. You know, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Just get high. It'll
Right.
all be
And you had landed here in Barron County,
okay.
and that is when something in you changed. Now, I've heard Miss Gay say more than once that the Victoria that I met was most certainly not the Victoria that she met.
Yeah,
So,
very true.
what was it about? What was your changing moment? When did you realize, okay, something's got to give?
I don't know that I can necessarily put my finger on the exact moment, but I believe that an addict, and specifically for me, that there is at least one moment of clarity, one moment of grace that that you know, if you're set on the right path at that moment, you have a chance. And had I had those moments previously, I'd been to other treatments, I'd been through rehab, I'd been through all that stuff. But no, it was just, I think that I had had enough pain, and I had had enough misery, and I had had enough suffering. I had been in jail for a very long time, and you know, so I think that everything lined up to where it was something was offered to me at that time that could potentially, you know, initially it just sounded like the same old song and dance to me. And I was like, well, you know, I'll just do this. And initially signed up for this program that I received in Barron County. It was going to take time off of my sentence,
Hmm.
and thank God for that moment of grace, or that moment of clarity, because you know, it set me on a path to where everything was going to change. I didn't know it then, but everything was going to change. And you know, I look back on it now, just, I mean, more gratitude than I can ever explain to you.
You know, statistics are always good. You know, you hear people say this program does this or this program does that, and all that sounds good. But I mean, when it comes to real life, actual flesh and blood success stories, you're absolutely one of those. You've been clean 2 years now, doing amazing things. So, I mean, is it easy? How did you do it? What advice do you have to people who may have been where you were at, 3 years ago?
I can tell you right now, nothing about this has been easy, but I've done it. I think you asked me how I've done it. I've done it one day at a time, literally one day at a time. You hear that in 12-step programs. You hear people talk about that all the time. Literally the truth, one day at a time. I made a plan while I was still incarcerated, and about what I was going to do when I got out, because without a plan, I was going to fail. So I had this plan, and I had no idea if I was going to make it. I was sure going to try, but historically speaking, that hadn't been the case for me. But I got out, and I just tried. I tried every single day. I tried to be better than I was the day before. I tried to work towards achieving something that was on my list. And the thing is, what had happened while I was there is that I learned how to think differently.
Hmm.
I learned how to tap into, moral standards, moral values, and just do the next right thing. That part of it, seems simple. You just do the next right thing. It might seem simple to someone who's that's just what they know. It wasn't the case for me. I had to make an active effort every single day to, first of all, get up every single day, and I was not going to get high today. I am not going to drink today. Today I'm going to stay sober. And because of that, I got a daily reprieve from that. I maintenance that, and then those days just started adding up. I started to dream again. I started to live again. And before I knew it, I had built a life that I felt. And I think that was the biggest thing. I had to clean up the wreckage of my past. I had to clean up the things that I had done wrong to people. I had to, not say I'm sorry, but make an active amends to these people. Show them that I in fact was sorry. What can I do to make this right? That's not easy. I had to face all those demons. But, on the hardest days, on the days where, and I'm a human being, I have those days where I don't want to get out of bed just because, I'm a recovering addict doesn't mean I'm above any of that stuff, because I'm not. I cry, I kick, I scream, and I want to give up sometimes, but I don't.
Hmm.
And that's the thing is you just can't give up. No matter how hard it gets, you don't give up and you don't get high over it. And I've been out a little, like I said, a little over 2 years now, and I haven't found a reason bad enough. So
Wow. Now, you everybody, knows somebody that is affected by addiction, whether it be friend, family member, somebody. And you hear everything from tough love. You got to tell them who they are. You got to confront them with their problem. And when you're neck deep in addiction, what helps when what can somebody say that would help? What can somebody say that would absolutely not help? I mean, what would make a difference?
I think first thing that came to mind when you said that was what doesn't help. And attacking an addict, especially one that's in active addiction, it's never going to work. Like I told you before, we know we're junkies. We know the stuff that we're doing. We know that we are dying. We know this. We can't stop. And just on willpower alone, it doesn't work.
Right.
If it did, I'd have been clean a long time ago. I never wanted to go through all this stuff. But I think the biggest thing, it has to be one of the hardest things in the world to love an addict, to love. You have a child, a family member, a significant other. That has to be so incredibly heartbreaking, because we are tornadoes. We are hurricanes. We will rip through your life. We're ruining our own lives and tearing through the lives of everyone around us. I think the best thing that I can say is don't be an enabler. Do not be an enabler. You will love that addict to death.
Mm-hmm.
You will absolutely love them to death. If you want to intervene, make sure that you have a plan for that intervention, that you have a treatment facility, that you have the help that's out there available. Do your homework and take care of yourself. There's programs for people who love addicts.
Mm-hmm.
There are programs for people who love alcoholics to help you take care of you while trying to help someone else. I mean, the bottom line is you can't save an addict.
Right.
The only person that can save an addict. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Now, I know you had mentioned that, when you had been incarcerated before, you had made a list of things that you were going to do, dreams that you had. When you said that deep down you knew that probably, though, you weren't going to achieve any of those dreams. But now, we talked about two of them. I think there's probably three that I think that I've seen you achieve as I follow you on Facebook. You seem like you have found love. You are a small business owner, and you are getting ready to absolutely take on the wilderness. So let's take this. So seriously, you have found somebody that knows everything about you. I mean, you've hid nothing, and he loves you. So what is that like?
It is one of the most freeing feelings in the world. I've never had that kind of love before. I've loved people, absolutely, but I was incapable of loving myself. So how can you truly love someone else? And just by circumstance, through a friend, I was introduced to this man, and saw the rainbows and the butterflies and all that stuff. And I decided that if I was going to be in a relationship sober that I was going to lay it out on the table. He needed to know, and I did. I was I probably gave him the really horrific stuff first, just to try
Right.
to scare him. Like, listen, this is what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I he's a godsend. He loves me unconditionally, and he wants nothing from me. He just loves me. It's an amazing thing. He supports my dreams, and we just I tell you, we're funny. I've learned to build a relationship, like a normal relationship. We don't, things get tough. I don't run,
Mm-hmm.
and I always did before, and it's really I say wait for the fairy tale, and it's to me it's my fairy tale. It's it's not always good, but when it's good, it's really good, and we just made that commitment to each other, and he's an amazing man. I'm very blessed, very very blessed.
And he supports your latest business endeavor.
He does actually. It's I don't know. I bless his heart. I don't know if he'd say that when there's flour and powdered sugar all over the kitchen, but
Right.
did I found I say baking is cheaper than therapy,
Mm-hmm.
so I started baking just kind of for friends and things like that, and I found a passion in it, and that's the best thing about being clean is you get to learn who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You get to discover what makes you happy, and it's like starting all over in life, being given that second chance. I definitely don't take that for granted, and I discovered this passion for baking, and I just made a few cupcakes, and now I'm making wedding cakes and birthday cakes. People trust me with their special events. It blows me away sometimes when I step back and look at it. And yeah, so it's been absolutely unbelievable. And he's my best taste tester. So
There you go. And you are actually getting ready to take on the Appalachian Trail.
I am.
Why on earth would you?
Well, I'd have to be a little bit crazy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, I was just a little kid when I first found out what the Appalachian Trail was, read about it in a magazine at my aunt's house, and, it planted some kind of little seed back there somewhere. So through all the ups and downs and the twists and turns in life, I never let go of that dream. I never let go of it. I didn't even really understand what I was getting myself into, though. I was like, oh, one day I'm gonna go hike this trail, and I'm gonna do that. I didn't know what I was getting into. But specifically when I was incarcerated, that became something that I thought a lot about, and it was a bucket list item, something that I was going to do. But it always seemed like it was probably just one of those things that I would just talk about and
Mm-hmm.
never pick up. And that's been one of the biggest blessings that I've had is that I'm following through. I'm getting ready to truly live one of my dreams. I leave in 5 days. I have worked so hard work, tireless nights, extra shifts, and I've had to learn everything about this. When I decided I was going to do this, I didn't own camping equipment. I'd never even spent the night in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. So it's literally from the ground up, and I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to get everything I got.
Well, Victoria, all I have to say is it is amazing and it's inspiring to see. You are not the person at all that I met a little over 2 years ago, and I think you're an inspiration. I think you're honest, and I think that if you can come through and overcome everything you have, girl, that Appalachian Trail it is not ready for you. So, what do you say that we definitely want to keep up with you and follow you and share the good things that's going on in your life? And we love a box of those cupcakes down here at the studio.
Have to see what I can do.
All right, thank you so much, Victoria. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye.